Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the old hunt. We are here in the dream where we actually have quite a lot to talk about, and a lot of it is going to be involving the doll here, which, as you can see, she is asleep. Well, it looks that way, and we have some onomatopoeia down in the lower part of the screen here going, Sue, 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 which is indicative of peaceful slumber. So this is one of the points where I think the official translation, as much as I respect their decision to let the sounds represent themselves, it can be a little bit hard to see that there's that little box down at the bottom of the screen until it goes away. And if you don't have any onomatopoeia in there, like I remember playing this game early on and just being perplexed at why when I went up to the doll and she was asleep, I couldn't talk to her right away. I had to press the button an extra time. Well, it's because it brings up the dialogue box that you're supposed to be dismissing, and you can't see it because the onomatopoeia aren't there. So I admit this is a nitpick in the sense that, like, it's not really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. But there was a little bit extra bit of confusion that playing the Japanese copy of the game helped me resolve. What it did not help me resolve is what's going on here.
Welcome home, good hunter. I must have drifted off. What is it you desire?
So we can see that the doll was asleep, right? It looked like she was asleep. She was making the sounds like she was asleep. And then we talked to her, and she clearly is roused from slumber and says, I must have drifted off. And it's an interesting idea. It sort of builds on the idea that we already may have been entertaining of how real is this doll? How much of a personality does she have? Because if we look, for example, at her hands, we can see that they have joints, like you would expect from a doll. Her face appears to be that of a doll. Let's see, if you do this right, you can get a close-up. She's looking away. Not going to cooperate. But you can get a nice close-up of the doll's face if you do this correctly, and you're not me. But it's clearly a doll's face. And it's not the sort of thing that you would expect of an inanimate object, though, right? The speech, the falling asleep, the consciousness. When we first find the doll, we find her up on that ledge, and just as a regular abandoned doll with when we have zero insight. Gaining insight sort of makes it seem like she's alive. How much is that our insanity? How much of that is reality? And you don't really know. What does it mean that she can be asleep? I love that they sort of put this ever-evolving twist into the idea of how real, how personal the doll actually is. Because I think it's a fascinating question. And this isn't necessarily one of those things that the game ever gives an answer to. You can't really know. And it's not even one of the things where in the Soulsborne games, I've been talking about this a lot, they give you all the pieces and then they give you some, like, the ability to put them together yourself however you sort of want to. This is just something that they put in front of you as a question for you to entertain. And I love the way that they do that and the way that they keep iterating on it as the game goes on. It's fascinating. But we're even now, we're not done with the doll and the implications for what her character has for our conception of this place and this world is concerned, because she should have a new dialogue for us if we go down to talk here.
Over time, countless hunters have visited this dream. The graves here stand in their memory. It all seems so long ago now.
Okay, it's a short dialogue.
Farewell.
And it may not sound huge, but there's actually quite a lot in it that I think is fascinating. First and foremost, the line where she says, countless hunters have visited this dream. Well, the actual Japanese, if you read the subtitle, is akumu, which means nightmare. Countless hunters have visited this nightmare. So what's going on? Is this some sort of translation error? I don't think it's a translation error, right? I could be wrong about that. Like I said before, I don't have any real knowledge of what the recording sessions for Bloodborne were like. But you remember how I was talking about the Kirkhammer and how the final portion of the text in the North American version of the game doesn't really match the Japanese, and how the UK release is closer but not perfect? There are lots of discrepancies like that throughout this game, but none of them appear in the voiced lines. And I think it's because the voiced lines had to be ready for the Japanese release. And if you know about video game development, you know that, they have the script for the voice actors show up, they do their recording session, and then that's it, right? Because they want to get those voices locked in as soon as possible. They don't want to pay too much for the voices with the budget that they have for their particular game, right? There's all sorts of reasons why you wouldn't want to touch them. And so once those get put in place, it sort of gets hard to mess around with them. You can delete or not use dialogues. That's fairly easy. So there are some cases where you can go online and people have found like the voice files saying lines that never made the game, and you can learn things about the game that way. But it's all sort of a little bit arguable because it never actually made the game. But anyway, that's a little bit of a sidetrack. The point is, because they had to have the voice lines set even for the Japanese release, I'm pretty sure that at least at the time they recorded the voice lines, the translators had a fairly good process in place for communicating with the developers. And we've seen that not just with that example I was giving of how there's no weird discrepancy between releases with the voice lines, but there's also other evidence. If you watch my Translation Born series, there's quite a bit of evidence that I've found that I think points to the fact that the voice lines, they had a much better sort of communication back and forth with the developers and the translators. So I suspect that at least at the time they recorded this line, the translators and the developers were on the same page. Now, that's not to say, right? I was talking about how hard it is to change the voice lines. How hard is it to change a subtitle? They can change the subtitles. So the Japanese may have updated the subtitles. I don't really know about that. But those are all potential reasons why the vocal performance may not match the subtitles. But there's also another potential explanation here, which is that this is a deliberate choice on the part of the translators to avoid confusion. So we're going to come up here, and we're going to read a note that I've been ignoring. Oh, hello, Gehrman. I'm going to ignore you now. Your time has come to be ignored. I have this note over here that I want to read. Okay, so we have the Japanese, and it starts off with Ima imashi karyudo no akumu. And there it is again, akumu, it's nightmare, right? So ima imashi is, it's like this unpleasant, I think the official translation sort of puts akumu and ima imashi together because they go with this dreadful hunter's dream. Probably, this is another message, so they probably were working under some character limitations, and I don't know what those were. But, so you have this awful hunter's nightmare, if you're going to be somewhat literal. And it says you're trapped by it, right? And so you're trapped, you're confined by this awful hunter's nightmare. I don't think there's any question that when it says this hunter's nightmare, they mean this hunter's dream, where we are right now, where we're reading this note. And so this note is calling the hunter's dream a nightmare. The doll just now made the same sort of reference, called this place a nightmare. And in both cases, right, in the case of this note, we have this dreadful hunter's dream. In the case of the doll's dialogue, we have countless hunters have visited this dream. I think what they're doing is they're trying to avoid confusion. I could be wrong. This is guesswork on my part. But I think they're trying to avoid confusion. And I think they did a good job, quite frankly, because the DLC comes out. They have another area. It's called Karyudo no Akumu. That means the hunter's nightmare, right? And they've translated it that the translators called the hunter's nightmare. And there's no confusion between the hunter's dream and the hunter's nightmare in English. In Japanese, well, the hunter's dream is the hunter's nightmare, but also there's the hunter's nightmare, and you can get to the hunter's nightmare from the hunter's dream, which is also the hunter's nightmare. It's confusing. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think you can sort of interpret this however you want. The way that I interpret it is they didn't necessarily plan so far ahead for the DLC that they knew that they were going to call that the hunter's nightmare. And so that's why they have this sort of clash in the Japanese, and they sort of fortunately avoided it in English. It's a little bit of interpretation on my part. But I think it's interesting because I think this shows that it could be a deliberate choice to avoid confusion. But I think the truth is somewhere sort of in between these two languages, where basically there are these things in Bloodborne called Nightmare Realms, and we'll see more of them as I keep playing the game. But the hunter's dream is one of those. So the hunter's dream is a nightmare, but it's a nightmare that's called the hunter's dream. And so when you get references to this nightmare like this, they're talking about the fact that this is a nightmare realm, but it's called the Hunter's Dream. And so you can call it that and maintain some clarity. Anyway, so let's finish this note, and then also we still have more of the doll's dialogue to talk about. Boy, there's so much going on. So much going on at the start of this game. It's crazy. So you're trapped by this awful hunter's nightmare, but if you wish to escape, crush the source of the plague of beasts. Otherwise, the night will never dawn. The night will never end. I think is a little bit more natural, but Yoa Akeru is like the dawning of the like day from the night bleeding into dawn sort of thing. It's a little bit tripping me up, obviously, but the idea is the night will never end. So we have a few interesting things here. First of all, this is telling us that it is our act, our crushing the source of the plague of beasts that will allow us to get to the end of the night. So that's interesting. I'm not sure how, like, authoritatively we're supposed to take that in terms of the world building or not. And this might tie into the idea that the Hunter's Dream is a dream, right? Because if the different stages of the day or the night are the results of our progress through the game, essentially, then the real world obviously doesn't work that way. Maybe this is dream logic. Maybe Yharnam is a dream, and the progress that we're making through it is all tied to us because of that. Hadn't really considered that. Anyway, I do think it's also interesting, though, that this is giving us another objective, right? So I've talked a lot about our first objective, where we wake up, we see our note in our own handwriting. It's telling us to seek pale blood, transcend the hunt. Well, even if we find pale blood, we're still going to be tied to this dream, and it's going to be the night of the hunt forever. That's what this note is telling us. And so if we want to escape it, we need to find the source of the plague of beasts and crush it. Ah, you were so close, gameplay Matt. There's actually a little more nuance to the statement that's potentially important. You see, after the phrase kemono no yamai, which means plague of beasts, there's the word man-en, which means spread or proliferation, particularly in the context of a disease. That means we're really being told to crush the source of the spread of the plague of beasts. In terms of Bloodborne's lore, this is potentially significant, because being asked to stop the thing that's causing the bestial transformations to proliferate could be seen as something separate from stopping the plague itself. Finally, I think it's worth noting that I believe the official translators have done an admirable job trimming down the wording to get this idea across under what must have been a tight set of character and line limits, implying that we've been trapped by the dream by telling us how to escape it, conflating the ideas of this place being vexing and a nightmare, using the phrase spreading scourge of beasts to catch that sense that it's this spread that must be stopped, and going with the term lest to spell out a potential negative outcome are all clever ways of conveying the same sentiment as the original message in fewer words. I imagine this presented quite the puzzle, since if we guess based on the English wording that they had 2 lines of 68 characters each, it would be hard to pare down the literal version I presented earlier. Okay, thanks for indulging me in that translation-born style tangent. Now I'll let Gameplay Matt spell out what this mission to stop the spreading plague of beasts means for our character in the world of Bloodborne. So, that's obviously another important goal for us, and it's going to come into play more as we continue to make our way through the game. Also, to get back to what the doll was saying... Sorry, Gehrman, you're going to have to wait. You keep waiting. You're good at waiting for a long time. It's in the lore. Anyway, Gehrman can wait. But we have these headstones, right? These are all headstones. And we have more of them over here. And we have more of them... I don't know if we can see them all. But we have more of them around the dream. Yeah, I think there's more specifically back in an area that we can't access yet. Is it over? Did I pass it out? No, it's over here. Can we see back here? Yeah, we can definitely see some of them. So there's more headstones back here. There's all these headstones littered all over the dream. And the doll is telling us that they stand in the memory of various hunters who have visited the dream. So we aren't the only hunters who've been tied to this dream. But the ones who've come before, they've all died. They're present here is marked by gravestones. That's interesting. And, this is something that's interesting. So, as I'm recording this episode, episode 5 of The Old Hunt has just come out. So I've been getting some more comments. 5 was the first one where I started talking about the lore direction of things and me just indulging my sort of lore and story aspect, like sensibilities. And thank you all, by the way, for your responses. It's been incredibly heartening to hear that you're not put off by my slow pace, which has been freaking me out. But one of the comments that I got was that this storage box here is actually styled like a coffin. And I was told this. I mean, to me, that looks like a storage box. But the person who made the comment was Charred Thermos, who that is someone who when that person tells me that the coffin, this thing is styled like a coffin, I believe it, because and actually now that I'm looking, I can see it now. It took me a minute, but I see it now, the sort of casket-like thing, especially if you get around that lip there. I can see it. So there's a lot of death theming in the dream. Oh, and by the way, if people are curious, I do like Charred Thermos's work. I think it's interesting to think about this game in terms of the medical metaphor. Again, I said this, I think back in episode 5 even, because it was the first one where I said I was going to actually talk about lore. I don't think there's a fundamental truth of this game, but if you're wondering why I don't talk more about that aspect of things, it's because I can barely keep my own interpretation straight based on the Japanese, which tends to be the angle that I come at this game from. So if you're interested in more of the medical history and origins and things that go into this game, definitely check out Charred Thermos's channel. And I appreciate Charred Thermos seemingly being along the ride for this playthrough. It's an honor. But anyway, the other thing that I wanted to mention was we have this translation choice, right? Where we have the nightmare, the dream, which one is it, what's going on. That's something that another commenter has sort of picked up on in another way. And at this point, Gameplay Matt decided to ramble on at length about something I can state much more simply. Remember how we hear that one line from the doll at the start of the game? In English, it seems like that dialogue is intended to be spoken to Gehrman. And that may well be accurate. In my experience, it's not uncommon for information on who the speaker is and who the intended addressee is to be provided alongside a given line of dialogue, which means the translators could have chosen the official English wording to subtly convey what they knew, which is that the doll was addressing Gehrman. If you look at the Japanese subtitle, though, you'll find that it only consists of the exclamation, "ah," the idea that a hunter has been found, and a particle that indicates that the speaker is making a conversational observation. In other words, the subject is implied but unspecified, meaning it could also be translated as, "ah, you found yourselves a hunter." Okay, Gameplay Matt, I just saved us a lot of time. Please elaborate on why that alternative translation might be significant. Maybe that isn't being addressed to Gehrman, it's being addressed to the messengers, because the messengers are the ones who are crawling all over us at that point, right? Interesting thing to think about. Now, ultimately, like I said, I am personally of the persuasion that the translators had a pretty good communication setup going on with the developers, especially for the voice lines. I think there's probably a little bit of miscommunication that creeps in the text, and we've seen that already on the Kirkhammer. I think that evidence is fairly conclusive. And there's more evidence that we'll see where there's a set of runes that I did in that special that I think is also indicative, where the Japanese is just a little bit more up to date than most of the other languages. And continues to get updated more, as we saw with the echoing blood retrieved as opposed to blood echoes retrieved. So it's interesting to me, though, how your decision to delineate what text you're paying attention to can change your interpretation of this game. If you privilege the English reading, you're going to come away with one understanding. If you privilege the Japanese reading, you're going to come away with another understanding. If you're like me and you're constantly bouncing back and forth between the two, you're going to come away with yet another understanding. And part of what informs your decision to do that is what sort of situation you imagine the translators were working under. And it's all it's all this glorious mess. And as confusing as that can make things, I sort of love it. So I think I put a little note on the screen for the last episode, if I'm remembering my editing practices correctly, where I said I'd mention the possibility that it might be the messengers that the doll was addressing instead of Gehrman. I think personally I'm still leaning a bit more on the side of Gehrman because of my particular belief about the real world situation under which this game was made. But I think it's totally valid if you want to say, well, I don't care about the real world situation. I just want to look at the Japanese subtitle and use that as my text. And having sort of defined the parameters with which I'm going to engage with this game in, I've determined that the doll was speaking to the messengers. I think that's totally valid. And I think it's interesting. Anyway, I think I've thoroughly exhausted that topic. And I've talked about how death is sort of an ongoing subject in the dream. And I've talked about how we have another goal. It's not just about finding pale blood and transcending the hunt, or completing the hunt, or whatever you want to make of it. It's also about escaping the fact that we are irrevocably tied to this dream until the night of the hunt is over, it seems. And so we have a new goal: escape the dream, end the plague of beasts, or crush. Right? It's interesting verb there. Anyway, so having established all that, finally, I might just go a little bit long in this episode because I don't want to literally spend my entire time here in the dream. Let's do some mechanical stuff.
Welcome. What is it?
I want to level up.
Very well.
That's what I desire. I desire levels. How many levels can I get? 2. Okay. All right. Well, I know if I bring my strength to 16, that will allow me to wield the Kirk hammer. But I'm not about to let Arcane fall by the wayside. This is an Arcane playthrough, dang it. We can't let this strength get overtaken. So we're gonna commit. We're gonna get both of those to 16. And you know what? I like the idea of...
Farewell, good.
I like the idea of switching weapons pretty soon. At this point, well, I don't have many blood echoes, so I don't think I can switch weapons just yet. But pretty soon, I think. We're in a new area. We're in a new phase of the game. I think it's about time we start thinking about switching weapons. But anyway, there's one more thing we need to do in this dream. Having leveled up, having taken care of all that, having pointed out the thing about the nightmares. Oh, there's one other piece of evidence before I forget, right? And I pointed this out in previous episodes, but I want to make sure I get back to it now. We have this, I don't know, tray of water. The literal Japanese kanji there, it's sort of a made-up term, as far as I can tell, suibon, where it's a bath, I think is the official translation. But it's literally like, you look at those two kanjis like a tray of water, and that trips me up every time. But this bath appears to be connected to the nightmare, right? Appears to be connected to the hunter's dream, which is a nightmare. But you can't see any messengers. And that's weird because messengers are residents of the dream. This is also information that we have, right? So that's why I think that message makes sense. Why it's talking about a nightmare is because the hunter's dream is a nightmare. And then if we come over to this garden, of course, we have the hollow in the stump. And the hollow in the stump appears to be connected to the nightmare, but messengers cannot be seen. And again, that's weird because the messengers are residents of the dream. They're tied to the nightmare, sort of like we are. Interesting situation there. Okay, now let's talk to Gehrman and get yet another bit of important direction.
The moon is close. It will be a long hunt tonight. If the beasts loom large and threaten to crush your spirits, seek a holy chalice. As every hunter before you has. A holy chalice will reveal the tomb of the gods, where hunters partake in communion. Most of the holy chalices lie deep within the tomb of the gods, and the few that found their way to the surface were lost again in the hands of men. But if the old hunter tales remain true, one of the holy chalices is worshipped in the valley hamlet. Yet the town is in disarray. It was burned and abandoned for fear of the scourge, home now only to beasts. The perfect place for a hunter, wouldn't you say? One of the holy chalices is worshipped in the Valley Hamlet, a town of beasts. The perfect place for a hunter.
Okay, so there we have some new direction. We have the idea that there are these holy chalices that we can use, partake of, something. I don't know exactly the best word for them. But we have these holy chalices that we can access that will help us if the beasts loom large, right? I think the idea is if you run into trouble, if things seem particularly difficult, you can go after a holy chalice. And where can we find one? Well, maybe this old beast town that was burned to the ground. Hey, that sounds familiar, right? We've talked already about that one note that had old Yharnam being burned to the ground on a moonlit night. Also, note that Gehrman is also pointing out, like we have, like we've heard from a couple other NPCs, it's going to be a long hunt tonight, right? I think that's sort of Gehrman's way of saying tonight's hunt is unusual. It's going to be especially long. What's he say before that? He says the moon is close. So the proximity of the moon seems to have something to do with the state of the hunt. And that's interesting. I'm pretty sure the note also mentioned it being a moonlit night when Old Yharnam had to be burned. And he's telling us to go to Old Yharnam if we want to access the Holy Chalice and sort of fortify our abilities, I guess, in case things get too tough in the city of Yharnam. So anyway, we're going to work over to the city of Yharnam, the Cathedral Ward, which we worked so hard to get to. Surely our quest is, the end of our quest is just around the corner. We're going to find out all about Pale Blood and everything's going to be fine. I don't know. We're going to poke around and see what things are like in central Yharnam. Okay, we're back. And having made it back, let's go check out this new world that we have access to. New enemies on patrol. Uh-oh. Note that I can't stagger this enemy. And, boy, does he hit hard. Might actually die. I really would prefer not to. There we go. However, they are still fairly easy to get the visceral attack on. And that still does the trick. So, not completely hopeless. But, you know, these enemies do seem tougher. So, there is that. Maybe we'll be taking Gehrman's advice after all. Oh, and here we go. Ow. I meant to dodge. Boy, I did not dodge. Boy, I just got smacked in the face. Hilarious. Talk about looming large, though, right? Oh, we lost it. Uh-oh. I'm going for something very specific. You can't stagger this enemy the way that you stagger most enemies. So, I'm trying to make it happen. It's not working. Yeah, I would say this enemy looms pretty large. Yikes. Oh no. I healed at the wrong time. Oh, I may need to be doing some blood vial farming pretty soon. There we go. Dodge that one. Alright, big swings. Big wind-up swings. That's what I want from you. That's how I deal with this enemy. That is not a big wind-up swing. Stop doing that. Stop smacking. There we go. Except I dodged away. I dodged away, threw away my opportunity. Is this just not going to happen? Might be better if I just forget about it. Play around. These giants, the problem with them is they can't hit down by their feet. So I'll just make do with good old-fashioned hit and run. There we go. Oof. That was miserable. Oh well. Oh well. This is what I knew. See, I just picked up some upgrade materials there, And I knew that I'd be able to get a bunch if I came down this way. So, that's what I was after. I'm not even done being after them. Alright, yeah, come after me. And of course, now that we've moved on, we can no longer... Hey, where's my Molotov? There we go. Get the one-hit kill with that visceral. But that's no matter. Not when we've got Molotovs. I saw that. I completely mistimed that. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I'm not taking any chances. That's one of the problems with the rally system. Like, the opportunity to, there we go. The opportunity to make good use of it is really short-lived. So if you don't immediately start attacking, like, there's no point rallying. So you might as well just heal up with a blood vial. In which case, what was the point of that life or death struggle? I imagine they must have spent a good amount of time trying to balance that going back and forth. Because if you are too lenient with it, you don't encourage the struggle either, because people can take their time and they've got all the time in the world to sort of recover all that health, and who cares, right? Yeah, so I imagine that they settled on a reasonable value for what they wanted, but it does mean, I don't know about you, but I end up using a lot of blood vials rather than the rally system in a lot of cases. Also, just beautiful view. Yharnam is a marvel. Incredible. And that over there, by the way, I can say pretty much for sure, is the Great Bridge, because it leads up to a doorway, which we're about to come around on the other side of. I think I thought I might get there in 1 or 2 episodes back when I first mentioned it. It's been more than 1 or 2 episodes. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Crow! So long, Crow. Okay. Give me upgrade materials. Yes! More! More! Alright. I'm going to ignore you. And I'm going to kill you. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Incoming pain. Ignore that big guy at your peril. Oh, it got away! No! Alright, that's fine. That's fine. Alright. Crowd. Crowd the enemy. Crowd the giant. The giant has no answer for this. Yeah. Haha. Haha! That's right. Normally I let my fear get the better of me, and this enemy is really, really hard to deal with. But I'm not letting that happen this time. Look at this. Look at this. Look at that. Incredible. Even though the enemy was doing... That attack normally kills me, by the way, where he does that gigantic wind-up. Oh, I got the visceral. I wasn't even going for it. I'll take it, though. I'll overkill the enemy. Why not? We got to see that cool animation. Incredible. Ooh, and we got 5? Ooh, all right. We're definitely going to upgrade our weapon now. And actually, I'm going to be a little bit greedy. I'm going to cut out a little bit of a loading screen, because if I exit and come back into the game here, it'll reload the area and should reload that enemy. Ha! Where is it? Where is it? Ha! There we go. Thought you could run away from me. I can stop and restart the game. I have extra-dimensional power. Thanks for those upgrade materials. Boy, I think I got like at least 10, maybe 12 of those upgrade materials in one go. Amazing. Oh, I forgot I had the flame sprayer equipped. I want the torch. I want to see. There we go. This place. Here we go. It's the other side of the door. Look at this. Oh, uh-oh. I want to ignore the treasure chest. The treasure chest will not be ignored. No. I'll get back to that message. I want to... This treasure chest clearly demands my attention. There we go. Nice blood gem for us. And now, we're still feeling the magnetic pull of treasure that doesn't exist. Why? No. Okay, here we go. It is firmly shut. I think shut fast was the official translation. I can't remember. Maybe this is a version 1. 1.09 thing, 1.00 thing. I forget which one it was. There's some version of the game where this message is just closed. Talk about a terrible message for why you can't open the store. If that was the message that was, if I'm remembering correctly, and that message was showed up on this door, no wonder everyone would be just super frustrated at it. You go up to the door, you interact to open it, it just says closed. No, firmly shut, right? Firmly closed. It's like it's wedged and you can't open it, is the Japanese setting. Oh, yeah, look at me, waving at the door. It's the most famous door in Bloodborne. Okay, well, that was fun. Anyway, do I want to use a Bold Hunter's Mark? I don't think I'm going to do anything else right now. Although, there is one more place that I haven't shown off. So, actually, I'm not going to use the Bold Hunter's Mark, as handy as that would be. I don't need that torch anymore. So let's get back over to the gun. I wanted to come up this staircase and show another door that won't open, considerably less famous, sadly. But if we come up here, we will see this gate. This massive gate is also closed. And if we try to open, it's the main gate. It's not just any gate, it's the main gate. And if we try and open it, if we don't have a special symbol or sign, the front gate won't open from the outside. So this is actually a little bit of a hint. If you don't want to go through the game in a specific order, you can purchase an item from the shop, the messenger shop in the dream, and it's the Hunter Chief emblem, and you can use that to open the door. And people have found, like, I think you need a certain amount of insight to see it, but people have found that you can actually see, if you look carefully, there's some messengers that are on the other side that pull the lever for you. And that's interesting, because messengers are residents of the dream, and if they recognize a symbol in this world and can open a gate for you, you're tied to the dream. How well can you interact with this world? I'm going to continue asking that question throughout this entire playthrough. Anyway, I came back here because I forgot. I mentioned it when I was standing far away and not when I was close up. Somewhere around here is where the cleric beast probably jumped off landed down there. I think actually if you hack into the game, there's a location for the cleric beast that's something different, but like just the way the world is put together. This is somewhere around here is where you'd expect the cleric beast to be standing, and we had the super famous door over there. It does spatially connect, even though you can't open it, to the Great Bridge. So we've sort of come around full circle, and this is bringing back that idea that I mentioned. Things aren't looking so hot in the Cathedral ward. Like, as much as people were freaking out about that door being closed, the gate being shut, the Cathedral ward is having its own problems. But anyway, let's see. There's one more thing I need to show off on my way back to the Hunter's Dream. Oh, I haven't gone back to Yosefka's clinic yet either. Let's pick up this item over here and take care, because there it is. Something weird. Something very weird is going on there, and we don't yet know what it is, but that's definitely something we're going to want to take note of. The interesting thing about Bloodborne, a lot of the way I think that they achieve the sort of opaque weirdness through the storytelling is a combination of giving you a lot of information up front that you don't necessarily have a lot of context for, and then following up on it later with additional context. And I think it does a beautiful job of allowing you as the player continue to experience the game and gain more knowledge of it, you all of a sudden have all this extra context to go back to what you found evidence of before. And so on a second playthrough, you go through and you're like, oh, they just tell you this stuff. It's incredible. I don't know about you, but that was my experience. I went through, we're going to talk to Alfred later on, and a lot of his dialogues, it's like, oh, he just gives away the whole game. Maybe not the whole game, but a lot of it. It's just huge, vast amounts of information. And some of these dialogues that I've been teasing very specific info out of to keep in mind, like it's all being set up and you don't have any context for it. You play the full game, you get the context, you come back, and all of a sudden, those same words have a different meaning. It's just so cool. I just love the way that they've managed to achieve that. Anyway, because of the way that we're going to come at the game, we fought those more difficult monsters, and boy, they gave us something to think about. They were not easy battles. So I think we're going to have to be relying on the strength of old Gehrman. We're going to be listening to Gehrman's advice, do a little bit of a side path, but still one that is going to let us follow in the footsteps of hunters who've come before. So meanwhile, I will head back to the dream, and we're going to upgrade a new weapon. All right, we're back in the dream, and I already have an idea of what the new weapon is going to be. It's actually going to be an old weapon. I mentioned that back in the day, I went through like the entire game using the Hunter Axe in two-handed mode, and basically that was it. I figure we're going to Old Yharnam. Why don't we go back to an old weapon, for me anyway? I don't know about you, probably. I think, you know, roughly a third of the people who are watching this will have started with the cane, and roughly a third will have started with the saw cleaver. And by the way, we now have messengers over here, which has a note that says the Holy Chalice should be currently being worshipped in the old city center, Old Yharnam, in the valley. Oh, and that's another interesting thing. Remember how I was talking about the way that they sort of set up and tease you with information about the world, and then you have more context later? We've sort of been teased a lot about Old Yharnam. We know that it was sort of abandoned by the Healing Church. We know it was burned. We know that it's now a town of beasts. We know that it was abandoned for fear of the Scourge. We know that it's in the valley, right? Like, I think very early on, even Gilbert talks about how you go across the valley to the east of Yharnam to access the Great Bridge into the Cathedral Ward. So it's that valley is still there. Old Yharnam is still there. You just walk over it on that bridge, and you can ignore it. But when you're doing that, you're literally walking over the history, the old city center of Yharnam. And it's this like sort of place that is subtly there in the background this whole time that's being referenced, that we're actually gonna go there. And like I said, we need to, let's see, we're going to switch over to the Hunter Axe. And in order to make that happen, we got to upgrade it. And the Hunter Axe, like, I know I've been sort of building towards the Kirk Hammer. Do I want to go +3? I have the ability to do it. I don't think we need to go +3. I think we're just going to stick with +2. +3 we'll get to eventually. But this is the tricky thing about doing a multi-weapon playthrough, is how fully do you want to upgrade them. Once we get access to the chalices, the upgrade materials should be easier for me to farm off camera, so I can stop being quite so stingy. And actually, after Old Yharnam, which I'm using the Hunter Axe for, we're going to be good to go in terms of accessing the chalices. So why not? I'm going to stop being so stingy, and we're going to go to +3 with the Hunter Axe. All right, so we're going to switch weapons. And we don't have any blood gems in that weapon. Oh, blood gems. Okay. Do I want to get into this? I've been talking so much lore. I don't want to do it. You can't make me. I do want to put the one blood gem I think we have into our weapon, just because we sort of need... wait, do I not have an applicable blood gem? Oh, no, I was in the wrong menu. Of course. Okay. Let's go back here. All right, now. There it is. There's the Hunter Axe. There's the Hunter Axe. And we're going to see... Let's see. Look at how slow it is in the one-handed... I mean... Compare. So much slower. Put it in two-handed mode. Still pretty slow, right? Now, where's the... Is it this? Nope. I think this... Oh, I ran out of stamina. There's a combo. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's it. That's the combo. Then, of course, we have the crowd control that I was doing by accident before. The ultra crowd control. Yeah. It's still slow, but you hit a lot bigger in two-handed mode, which, as we're going to see, is very nice. But I'm going to be honoring old gameplay styles of mine while I do Old Yharnam, but I can't remember. It's true, I can't remember. I can't forget. We need to go talk to Yosefka before we head down to Old Yharnam. So I'm going to warp into the clinic. And here we are, back in the clinic. And this is the one sort of disadvantage of having the Hunter Axe in two-handed mode all the time, is you don't get the torch. I guess I could pick up the hand lantern, but I'm not going to do that just yet. There's no enemies around here. Let's see what happens after we've sent a couple people to Yosefka's clinic.
Oh, hello. You're all right. Very good.
She's safe with me now. I presume you're to thank? The treatment is going well. Stabilized, for the most part. Fascinating, really. Here you are, as promised.
Interesting.
Oh, thank goodness you came. Be a dear. Find me some more.
You know, you're not making yourself sound particularly trustworthy there, Yosefka. Also, note that we gained insight at each of those interactions. So something about interacting with Yosefka in that way has given us more information about the way this world works. And I'm not sure what exactly that particular mechanic is meant to be pointing out in this instance. It's not always clear, but interesting. I forgot that that gave you insight. And we got 2 things because we sent 2 people to Yosefka's clinic. I think there might be one more dialogue. Let's find out.
There may yet be humans out there. If you find them, send them to Yosefka's clinic. I endeavor to treat every survivor there is. So please, be a saint.
Interesting translation there. Yoroshiku onegai is just like, please. Please with anticipation of the favor being fulfilled sort of idea. Like, Yoroshiku is a little bit tricky. But please be a saint. It's so good. So good, right? The idea is that she's asking for your help, right? And saying that she's going to treat these people and do good. And so by getting your help to do good, she's calling you a saint. It's so clever. And even more when you sort of have the full context for this storyline. Interesting. Is there any more, or is that going to be repeat?
There may yet be
Repeat.
humans out.
Okay.
If you find it, so please.
Interesting. Also, I realize we're going long. I figure we would go long with this episode because I spent like at least the first half of it just yammering in the dream. But let's go back to the dream because we are over 10 insight. So the insight messenger should now be available. So let's see what that's like. All right, back in the dream. Gonna come up here. And here we go. We're over 10 insight. These messengers are now visible. This is the sort of thing that I was mentioning. There are ways in which you might be able to explain people in the city of Yharnam being able to see the messengers, because there are certain aspects of reality, certain things in the game that you can only see if you have enough insight. We saw that with the doll. I was talking earlier about the sort of question of what's going on with the doll, and we're seeing it again with the messengers. This time, I don't think there's quite as much of a question when it comes to, are these real, are these not real? I think these messengers are here. This is one of the cases where it seems like the mechanic of insight is allowing us to more correctly perceive reality. So if we talk to, this is the insight traders. If you use insight, based upon insight, you can trade with the messengers. So here we go. And they have a totally different set of materials for us to buy, including Father Gascoigne's attire here. Attire with descriptions that I took far too long to translate live. Hi, it's Editing Matt again, with a quicker version of all these pieces, starting with the hat. Priest's hunting hat. Attire of the old hunter, Father Gascoigne. Originally, it was close to the standard hunting attire prepared by the workshop, but a scent that ate away at Gascoigne and finally turned him into a terrifying beast clings to it. Furthermore, the term father is a name he was called because he was originally a cleric in a foreign land. The appellation of father is not used in the healing church. And before we move on to the rest of this attire, it's worth pointing out that the translators have taken the term priest out of the name of each version of this attire and used the name Gascoigne instead. I suspect this was to maintain clarity, because the appellation of father is specifically the reason the Japanese shimpu is employed everywhere else in the game, and it's only ever applied to Gascoigne. As such, calling this either the father's hunting attire or the priest's hunting attire is equivalent to calling this Gascoigne's hunting attire, and introducing the term priest into the item name might add confusion. Also, note that Gascoigne is referred to as an old hunter in the Japanese. This is an aspect of the base game that was much less prevalent before the release of the DLC, The Old Hunters, which really developed this concept. My suspicion here is that this is an aspect of the game where, unlike the location name Hunter's Nightmare that I mentioned earlier, the developers were probably more aware of how this would tie into the DLC for a full game experience. It's also not hard to see why the translators might miss this, since if you look only at the base game, there are a grand total of 24 instances of the Japanese for the phrase Old Hunter, and 10 of them are specifically in reference to a hunter who is physically old. But to get back to my own translations, it's worth noting that the chest piece has a different set of lines in the middle. These read, "The dingy scarf is a holy cloth, symbol of the healing church, but he himself ultimately parted ways with the church." Here, I don't have much to say except that I like the official translation's use of holy shawl rather than holy cloth, which is far too literal. And since all the other descriptions for this set of attire match that used for the hat, I'll let Gameplay Matt take over again and decide whether or not to buy these clothes. Anyway, I'm not actually going to buy those. Actually, maybe I should buy something. Oh, we also have these bells. But I've been going pretty long. I think we're going to save the bells for another time, sort of like we're saving the upgrade materials and gems and things. But I do want to buy some stuff because I'm curious if these messengers will stick around or go away. So we're going to buy this stuff after all, because we can afford it all. Go down to 5 insight. Do they disappear? There they go. And if we try and trade, the bath is connected to the nightmare, but there's no sign of the messengers. So right before our eyes, we trade our insight and they disappear. It looked like they sort of went down into somewhere else. I don't know how significant that may or may not be. That's interesting. But anyway, we began in the dream. I think this is a good point to end it. We're going to end in the dream. Next time, we will take our new weapon and we will head for Old Yharnam. I hope you will join me for that. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm going to call an end to my hunt for the evening, but I wish you good hunting.